Today, we're going to talk about something fascinating. It's the story of a single cultural custom that turned into this powerful symbol of resistance. I mean, we're talking about a flashpoint where tradition and colonial power just collided. And the consequences, they were explosive. We're going to explore exactly how a sacred rite of passage transformed into an all-out act of rebellion. And that really is the question, isn't it? How does something so deeply personal, a community's rite of passage, suddenly become a huge political statement? That's what we're going to unpack today. We're going to look at the Kikuyu people of Kenya and one of their most sacred customs to figure it out. And believe me, the stakes here could not have been higher. We're talking about the early 1900s, and all this pressure from European missionaries and colonial administrators, well, it forced an absolutely impossible choice. This was so much more than just a debate over one tradition. For the Kikuyu, this was a fight for their very survival. Their entire existence was on the line. Okay, so to really get why this conflict got so incredibly intense, we have to understand what this custom, this tradition called Irua, actually meant to them. This was their red line. You just didn't cross it. You see, Irua was so much more than just some physical ceremony. The best way to think about it is like it was the central engine of Kikuyu society. It was the whole system for education, for creating social bonds, for defining a person's entire place in the world. It wasn't just a custom. It was a complete institution. So you can imagine when outsiders came in and tried to get rid of Irua, it wasn't seen as just some, moral disagreement. No, it was seen as a direct assault on the Ruriri, on the nation itself. It felt like an attempt to completely dismantle their culture from the inside out, which to them was a path to total annihilation. And it's really important to get this. This ritual wasn't just symbolic. It was literally seen as the process that created a fully formed person. It's how you were given your rights, your status, all your responsibilities within the community. And this comparison here just perfectly illustrates that transformation. Look at this. Before the initiation, a girl, a Kirigu, had pretty much the lowest social standing you could have. But afterwards, as a Muiritu, boom, she was a full adult with a crucial role in the community. We're not just talking about a change in title here. This was a fundamental change in who she was and what she was worth to her entire lineage. And get this number, it's pretty staggering when you stop to think about it. The fine for killing an uninitiated boy, a kahi, was just 30 goats. And this wasn't about gender, not at all. It was all about their ritual status. It just goes to show you that in the eyes of the community and its laws, your real personhood, your actual worth, that came from initiation. And this right here gets to the absolute heart of the existential threat they felt. The right to have children wasn't granted by marriage. It was granted by Irua. An uninitiated mother, that was considered a cultural disaster. There was this deep fear that her children and maybe even the father would die. So for them, getting rid of this right, it meant guaranteed extinction. It's as simple as that. But there was another huge piece to this puzzle. Irua wasn't just about status and procreation. It was also a really rigorous and complete educational system. The ceremony you hear about, that was just the final step, the culmination of this long process of passing down culture. And what a journey it was. I mean, this wasn't a one-day thing. The traditional process could take up to 2 years. It involved meticulous physical preparation, this really intensive education on everything from tribal history to proper conduct, even sex ed. And then you had one-on-one instruction from a sponsor who would use this kind of symbolic, almost secret language to really drive home the value of their traditional knowledge. The rite also created this incredibly important social glue, the marika, or the age set. Basically, everyone who was initiated around the same time, say in the same 4 or 5 year window, became part of a lifelong brotherhood or sisterhood. It was like a built-in social safety net that bonded the whole community together, way beyond just family lines. All right, so now let's bring in the other side of the story, the forces that put this culture on a direct collision course with the West. And it all started with a complete and total misunderstanding of everything we've just talked about. So it was really spearheaded by Scottish missionaries, starting around 1904. And their critique basically had 2 parts. First, they had medical concerns, which, by the way, were pretty much unfounded. And second, they had these huge moral objections. They just saw the ceremonies as barbaric. They totally, completely missed the deep social and educational meaning behind the whole thing. So what was their strategy? Well, It was basically a kind of social engineering. They started deliberately favoring the uninitiated girls, giving them access to things like Western education and positions in the church. And what this did was create a huge rift right down the middle of the community. It was a direct challenge to the authority of the elders and the entire traditional social order. Now, the colonial government, they were a bit more subtle about it. They knew that an outright ban would probably cause a massive rebellion. So instead, they used these local councils they controlled to regulate the severity of the custom, basically hoping it would just die out on its own. It was a pretty clever tactic when you think about it. It attacked the sacred integrity of the ritual without looking like they were attacking the ritual itself. And so you have this perfect storm, right? You've got this direct moral attack from the missionaries and this subtle political pressure from the government. And that combination created the perfect breeding ground for resistance. The fight to save a single ritual became the fight to save an entire nation. And really, this saying captures the very essence of that resistance. Kuruani kurumia mitugo. It means to be initiated is to uphold the customs. It wasn't just about the physical act anymore. To go through initiation now, that was a declaration of loyalty. It was a public commitment to upholding the entire Kikuyu way of life, especially when it was under threat. This is really the moment where everything merged. Defending Irua was now the exact same thing as defending the Rururi, the nation. This one custom had become the ultimate symbol of their cultural identity. And at that point, any attack on it, well, that was seen as an act of war. And you can see the escalation so clearly on this timeline. I mean, what started as a moral critique by a handful of missionaries in the early 1900s, it evolves over about 2 decades into a central pillar of political nationalism. The fight over Irua literally became the foundational grievance, the main rallying cry for organized movements like the Kikuyu Central Association that were demanding independence. So in the end, the story of Irua really makes you think, and it leaves us with this powerful question. What happens when a culture feels its core identity is threatened? Well, what we see here is that even the most personal, most sacred traditions can transform into powerful weapons of resistance, completely blurring the lines between culture, identity, and politics.